I don't know how many people realize that slavery is something that actually gets agreed to. It's very, very rare that somebody is snatched and put into slavery. Uh, no matter what kind of conscription or barratry or servitude it is, it's not something that just happens accidentally. And one of the things I try to tell people all the time, and what you should teach your offspring, is that whenever a signature is required, guess what? There's a contract in place. You need to require to see the contract. You need to require to see what kind of servitude that you've placed yourself under. There's an interesting story. It was written by Orwell back in 1946, called The Moon Underwater. And there's a lot of bars that have been named that as well. Because that's what he talked about. He talked about like a local pub that he liked going to. But there's something that was happening within these pubs, especially if you go back to 16, 1700s, something like that. You're going to find that the king's men had people going in and going to the people that were intoxicated and placing a coin into their glass, or even having a bartender or a waitress do it for them, like like a stein or something like that. The only difference was the bottom of it. What they ended up doing is they ended up making it glass. I was in a secondhand store or something like that a while ago, and I noticed they had some steins for sale, and I was looking through them, and I actually found a couple of them that had clear bottoms on them, glass bottoms. I thought that was hilarious because I knew exactly where that came from. That came from back at that era, because what the gentlemen were wanting to do was they wanted to be able to look down inside their mug and see if there was a coin in the bottom. Because if they drank out of it and then accepted that coin, stuck it in their pocket, guess what? Now they were going to be conscribed. What do scribes do? Scribes conscribe you. They put you into bondage. They put you into slavery. And many of these gentlemen that did that would end up pretty much disappearing from society. They were conscribed into the king's maritime force and have to go to work on the ships, become one of his slaves, essentially. And that's what happens. Whenever you accept a benefit, whenever you accept that coin in the bottom of the glass, you are holding a position of liability. That's a maxim of law. Maxim of law, and it comes from scripture as well. You know, that the borrower is servant to the lender. It's just the way it works. It makes sense. Um, that's very often, many times, why, women won't accept a drink from a gentleman in a bar. Why? Because, oh, he might accept something else later on. Very often they do. And this has been seen all through history, and taking advantage of people in this way. There's a story that Edgar Allan Poe fell into the same thing. Um, Edgar Allan Poe, and I recommend people read his writings. He wrote some great stuff, and people need to comprehend the story behind the things that he wrote. Edgar Allan Poe died in 1849, and there's a rumor out there that the reason why he died was because he was in a pub. They said he was a drunkard. I actually fell off my chair one time reading a story where they said that Edgar Allan Poe actually died of rabies. I thought that was great. But what happened was that at that time, 1849, that there was an election period. He died in the fall. He died in October. And what they would do is they would go and pay and con people into going and voting more than one time, voting multiple times. Voter fraud. God, who's ever heard of voter fraud? We never would have thought that ever existed, right? And Edgar Allan Poe supposedly refused to do it, and so he was beat to death in the alley, something like that. All right. So people are taken advantage of in their weakest points. One of a weak points is you're going to get a driver's license at the DMV. You're 15, 16 years old. You don't know any better. You don't know what you don't realize what you're doing. You don't realize that whenever you sign a contract, whenever you have your signature required to acquire something, there's a contract in place. There's a contract back there. Go search it. Anybody wants to see the driver's license compact? Ask me. I'll show it to you. Okay? It can be found. I had a conversation with Trey Bean, and she did an excellent job pulling it up and showing it to people on her channel, which she is quiet on right now. We need to freaking pay attention to the contracts we get involved in because they trick you into them. Guaranteed slavery, supposedly under Lincoln, was made illegal. Okay. Well, involuntary slavery was never made illegal. You are always allowed to put yourself into voluntary servitude. It's been done all through history. Look at the Israelites. Look at the brothers of Joseph. Everybody has done it. It's happened over and over again. When you're put into a place of need, all of a sudden, you're willing to give up your rights. We need to pay close attention to that moon under the water. We need to pay close attention to that coin that we're accepting. Because that coin you're accepting is going to place you into voluntary servitude. Keep that in mind, everybody.